What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix for Week 3 of the 2021 CFL season. I'm Ryan Coop, and I'm back today with your Thursday depth chart and injury update here as you get set to start locking in the start of your line. First game of Week 3 kicks off tonight between the BC Lions and the Edmonton Elks. We have depth charts out already for that game. We have depth charts for the Friday night game between Calgary and Montreal. Nothing yet for the two Saturday games, but we do have injury reports I can talk about here for those as well. So let's take a look at the depth chart for these first two games and see if there's any notable changes there. The first one, looking at the BC Lions, starting quarterback on the depth chart for week number 3 is currently listed as Michael Riley. The one notable difference than previous weeks is there's a fine little Q beside him for questionable, which I think this was maybe done in response to what we saw happen the last 2 weeks where, we thought one quarterback was going to start for BC and the other ended up being the starter. So they've now tried to make this as clear as possible. Michael Riley is listed as the starter for the Lions this week, but he is still going to be a questionable game time decision. Now, the encouraging thing is they did put him in the lineup, or in practice, sorry. He was participating more so this week than he was in any of the previous weeks. So, and going back to last week's game, he seemed to be performing very well there. So I do like the chances of Riley being the starter this week, but he is still a game time decision, so there is always that little bit of a question mark. Hopefully we'll get confirmation one way or another, a bit before kickoff tonight. But be prepared. He's a good option if he's in the lineup, but there is that small chance that you may have to take a risk on in order to put him in there, and that's something you just can't plan for to know for sure until the very last minute whether he will play. Other notables for the BC Lions, after James Butler got the start at running back the past 2 weeks, Shaq Cooper comes off the injured list. He will be starting at running back this week. I do love him as a fantasy option. I think he is going to shine in this BC offense. I think he showed flashes of brilliance when he was with the Elks, before they became the Elks, so 2 years ago. Behind CJ Gable, he got a couple games in there that looked really good. This BC Lions offense is a high-powered offense. I think we're looking at a good day for Shaq Cooper here, and especially because Edmonton will be without one of their top defensive linemen, arguably the top defensive lineman on their team, Kwaku Boateng, who is out due to COVID protocol. So maybe there's some more space for BC's offense to shine there. So I like Shaq Cooper in the run game here for the Lions. The concern is, do they lean too heavily on the passing game that he doesn't get involved in that? Well, I can see him still getting a couple catches there as well. That's what Butler did the last 2 weeks too. So I like Shaq Cooper. At wide receiver, nothing's changed. You have Lucky Whitehead, Brian Burnham, Lamar Durant, Dominic Rhymes, and Shaq Johnson as your starters there. So no changes at wide receiver for the Lions in that regard. And Chris Rainey still listed as the kick returner, punt returner for the Lions against a team that gave up a return touchdown last week. So make of that what you will. I'm probably staying away from Rainey myself, but hey, it's an option if you want to take a chance on it. Looking at the Elks depth chart for tonight, Trevor Harris is the starting quarterback once again. James Wilder Jr. is back at running back for another week again. No surprise on either of those two. Starting wide receivers, Darrell Walker, Greg Ellingson, Tavon Smith, Mike Jones, and Shai Ross. The one notable missing there is Armonte Edwards, who is out on the one-game injured list. So this means Tavon Smith gets himself back into a starting role, and he's maybe an interesting player to watch for me because he had a great year last year, 600, 700 yards, a couple touchdowns added to it. That's a pretty solid year and pretty solid production, I would say, right? So there is that option there. He's a little bit cheaper on the salary. I think he's mid-range on the CFL Fantasy salaries for this week. But again, the Elks offense has struggled through 2 weeks. I talked about this on my wide receiver preview. I'm staying away personally from any that's not Darrell Walker this week. And even that one's a cautionary pick for me. I think we need to see what they're going to do against this Lions defense that is looking pretty good in the last 6 quarters they've played. So nothing notable there in terms of offensively for the Elks. Defensively, as I mentioned, no Kwaku Boateng. He will be out on the COVID protocol list, it seems, so he will not be in the lineup this week, which is a big loss there on the defensive line. So maybe, given how high-powered BC's offense is, given that they're missing Boateng, given that the defense for Edmonton put up 0 points last week, stay away from the Elks defense, I say, in week number 3. Getting into the Friday night depth charts, Montreal and Calgary for the Alouettes, Vernon Adams Jr. at quarterback, William Stanback at running back, and all of the same receivers again this week as well. Eugene Lewis, BJ Cunningham, Jake Weineke, Quan Bray, and Keon Julian Grant are your wide receivers, with Mario Alford in at kick returner. I really like this high-powered Montreal offense. Again, as I've talked about this week, I don't know who's getting the ball, though, is the problem. So they should be able to put up a pretty good day as a whole against a Calgary team that is struggling this year and is without their star quarterback. So I like this week for Montreal. Looking on defense, they've got, I believe, most of the lineup back from last week as well, so no notable changes on the Alouettes depth chart. A pretty solid defensive line there that could cause some havoc for Calgary's starting quarterback. Antonio Simmons, Almondo Sewell, Woody Barron, Nick Usher. That's a pretty scary front four on that defensive line. So same lineup again this week for Montreal. It worked well for them last week as they performed well in all 3 facets of the game. We'll see if that works for them again in week number 3. Calgary Stampeders have released their depth chart, and we got the update the other day that Bo Levi Mitchell is on the 6-game injured list with a broken fibula. Really insane that he managed to play in week 2 on that, by the way. Something clearly looked off with him. Yeah, I get it now. I understand why you didn't have your best football game, Bo. I wouldn't even be able to walk on a broken fibula. Never mind try to play a whole football game. So kudos to him. Gotta give him respect for that, for trying to go out there and play on that. But he has been shut down now. Everybody thought it was going to be Canadian quarterback Michael O'Connor getting the start tonight or Friday night, but looks like it is in fact Jake Meyer, who was 3rd string last week on the depth chart, was not in the starting lineup, will be getting the start for the Stampeders. He's got Kadeem Carey, he's got Ante Milanovic Leader kind of swapping in and out at running back. At wide receiver, Josh Huff, Markeith Ambles, Kamar Jordan, Richie Sindani, and Herji Mayala. So the same group at wide receiver and running back, but the most notable difference being no Bo Levi Mitchell, and Jake Meyer is the starting quarterback, and I have no idea what to expect from this guy. We have not seen him play. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is his first CFL game. So there's not a whole lot to go off of, especially, you don't see a whole ton from the 3rd string in practice. So for a team that's been struggling, I'm staying away from pretty much all of Calgary's offense this week. I think that's... we don't know what we're going to get. If the kid comes out and shines and you pick members of the Calgary team, kudos to you for pulling that off. But they've underperformed so far this year. Kamar Jordan, hasn't been too bad, but he comes at a premium price in CFL Fantasy. And the other players on the other guys at wide receiver just have not put up the point totals. And at running back, it's too split between Carey and Milanovic-Leader, I find. So all the best to Jake Meyer as he gets the start for the Stampeders. I'm not sold on starting him when it comes to CFL Fantasy this week myself. Getting into looking at the injury reports for the Saturday games. Again, no depth chart yet. Make sure you stay tuned for the depth charts as they come out at some point tomorrow. Due to my own scheduling conflicts, I likely will not have a video update on those when they come out, but I will tweet them out. So make sure you follow me on Twitter at CooperTrooper42 to get updates on the finalized depth charts as they come out for those games. But looking at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they could be getting potentially a couple big pieces back this week. Darvin Adams, who missed the first 2 weeks of the season due to a shoulder injury, has been a full participant in practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, which is a good sign that he is getting close to being ready to go. If not this week, it could be next week already. That's a really encouraging thing. That's going to make this Bombers offense even better yet. And he's got a strong connection with Zach Collaros. And I like Darvin Adams as a fantasy option if he's in the lineup. I think that does put some hesitation on maybe some of the other guys, like a Nick Dembski or Rashid Bailey. What's their workload going to look like if Adams gets back in? But I do like what this offense could do with Darvin Adams back in. And the biggest one is Andrew Harris is starting to practice more and more. Listed on the injury report as limited in the last 2 days. I could see a situation where he is limited in practice, but they still put him in the lineup because, it's Andrew Harris. We've seen what he can do. And if he's a little bit banged up and he can still go out there and do that, there is the potential for him to play, I think. Or the Bombers could be looking at it as, well, Brady Oliveira is the future beyond Andrew Harris here. He's had not a bad first 2 weeks. His first game of the season was great. Maybe we just ride him out till Harris is fully healthy. So Harris could get in the lineup this week. We'll check those injury reports. We'll check those depth charts as they come out over the next day or two. Other notable players on the injury report: Nick Dembski did not practice on Wednesday and was limited on Tuesday with a hip injury. I would imagine we'll still see him in the lineup. I'd be shocked to see him out. Drew Wolotarski did not practice the last couple of days, so stay tuned on that. On defense, Willie Jefferson continues to be limited. Jackson Jeffcoat continues to be limited. Kyrie Wilson did not practice. John Terrell Rockmore did not either. Steven Richardson also not practicing. So not too many of these guys that I would worry won't be in the lineup. Jefferson and Jeffcoat have been limited in practice the past couple of weeks as well, and were game time decisions, so to say, but ended up playing. Kyrie Wilson, he's been out the first couple of weeks of the season. I would think if he's still not practicing, he's probably out again this week as well. So that's the injury report for the Bombers so far. For the Toronto Argonauts, Nick Arbuckle has officially been announced the starter this week for the Argos. We don't have their depth chart yet, but we know Arbuckle will be getting the start, which should come as no surprise. As I talked about on the quarterback preview for this week, it makes the most sense to me. And he's been a full participant in practice this week, so he should be 100% ready to go. And will look to have a strong start in his first start in an Argos uniform. Jawan Brescison went down with that knee injury against the Bombers. He should be out. Luckily, it doesn't seem like will be out as long as initially thought. It looked season-ending for him. I think he got placed on the 6-game injured list with the potential. They're hoping maybe he's back in 4 weeks, for example. So he will be out of the lineup for the foreseeable future, but maybe not season-ending for him. Eric Rogers missed a little bit of time on Tuesday due to a shoulder injury, but was a full participant Wednesday. He should be ready to go. John White did not practice on Wednesday, though, so something to monitor as those depth charts come out. And then a couple of guys on defense as well. Notable, Charleston Hughes, Enoch Muamba, not practicing on Wednesday. You have to wonder how much some of these are rest days for veterans in a shortened season. I wouldn't be too concerned until we see them officially ruled out for a game, that just because they didn't practice one day, that these guys are not playing. With Jawan Breskison pretty much confirmed out for this week, it should be Curley Gittins Jr. getting more of a role in that offense, I'm sure, this week. He was, listed as a starter in week 1, got a touchdown, was listed as a backup in week 2, and I don't believe got in on the game very much there, but could be slotted into a starting role for week number 3. And looking over to the last game of the week and the injury reports for that one, the Ottawa Red Blacks coming off the bye week, and it appears, there was some concerns about Matt Nichols' health coming out of week number 1. He did not look great in that game. It looked like he was struggling. Supposedly, he's been participating well in practice. He's been throwing deep balls. It looks like Matt Nichols is fairly ready to go for week number 3. Nothing notable, particularly from a fantasy perspective, for the Red Blacks. Brendan Galanders did not practice the past 2 days. If he's out, there's no worry he's taking any carries or anything away from Timothy Flanders. Not that he particularly gets a ton regularly anyways. The hero from game 1, Abdul Kanay, did not practice the past 2 days at defensive back, so we'll continue to monitor that. Same with Sherrod Baltimore, who was limited in practice the past couple of days. So nothing notable, I don't think, from a fantasy perspective so far for the Red Blacks. I say stay away from everybody on offense. Besides potentially Timothy Flanders if you're looking for a cheaper running back option. But I'm saying stay away from Matt Nichols, stay away from the wide receivers until we see that offense be able to pick things up over in Ottawa. And finally, for the Saskatchewan Roughriders, in their injury reports for this week, Shaq Evans has been placed on the 6-game injured list with an ankle injury, it sounds like Paul McRoberts will get into the starting lineup at wide receiver for the Riders this week in his place. So confirmed no Shaq Evans. I really like the improved fantasy potential now, of even more so than he already put up. Kyron Moore and more value plays such as Mitchell Picton, Braden Lenius. I like their potential to get a couple more targets and get a couple more points with these guys out of the lineup. On defense, couple other guys, a couple linebackers haven't been practicing. Micah Johnson's listed on here with an ankle injury, but has been a full participant the past 2 days. And AC Leonard was limited on Wednesday. So stay tuned kind of on that, because these are some big pieces of the defense, and watch those injury reports over the next 2 days and the depth charts here for the Riders. But expect Cody Fajardo to start at quarterback, William Powell at running back, and some combination, probably a combination of Kyron Moore, Jordan Williams-Lambert, Mitchell Picton, Braden Lenius, and Paul McRoberts at wide receiver for the Riders. So that's your Thursday update on the injury reports and the depth charts. Stay tuned again. Follow me on Twitter at CooperTrooper42 to get your Friday updates. In case I do not have time in my schedule to record a video version of the update, I will make sure to tweet them out so you have all the info you need to set your fantasy lineups for week number 3. But first game runs tonight. Make sure you set that lineup. Make sure you get those players in. And best of luck to you in week number 3 of CFL Fantasy. Do all of the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you liked, what you didn't, and join me again here next week as we recap week number 3 and then start taking a look to week number 4 here on the Canadian Football Fantasy Fix. As always, thanks for watching, take care, and best of luck in Week 3 of CFL Fantasy. Bye.